So since January, the Agenda Gap team has gathered weekly to address issues impacting youth mental health. And through discussions and insight from our youth, a significant concern emerged, and that was the topic of youth employment. And we've explored how lack of job-ready skills and barriers to employment affect youth mental health. And I will pass it on to Emmeline to present our call to action.
So as Brianna mentioned, we have been talking for the last couple months, and we decided to come up with a mission statement just to kind of explain who we are and what we do. So I'm just going to read that off really quickly. So as Mississauga's Agenda Gap Youth, our mission is to empower youth aged 14 to 17 to take meaningful action that promote mental well-being within our community and beyond. As a diverse group of teens, we come together to discuss innovative ways to advocate for mental health awareness and support. We are committed to assisting those most impacted, including the BIPOC, marginalized communities, and minority faiths, ensuring that everyone has access to the resources and support they need for well-being. So as Brianna already mentioned, we have come together in the last 5 months, and we decided to discuss youth employment and how it's critical to our well-being. All these outcomes, such as self-confidence, expanding social networks, community belonging, and fostering independence about giving opportunities for employment to youth, are known as protective factors that promote good mental health, the prevention of mental illness and substance use, and community engagement. So a couple challenges that we've discussed is, and a couple of research that we've done, is that in West Mississauga, where the majority of us are based, is believed to have the greatest concentration of youth in the country, making employment opportunities for youth particularly important, especially given that during the pandemic, Teal region closures were among the longest in the province. Many youth may have potential long-term disadvantages for post-secondary opportunities and employment without measures that address the consequences of long-term disconnectedness from social and community participation experiences. We found that youth are among the most underemployed groups in the country. And in fact, in Ontario, there is evidence that racialized youth, who make up the majority of Mississauga youth, face greater challenges to employment due to systemic discrimination and oppression. For example, in one study that we found, employment for racialized youth in Toronto was 44% lower than non-racialized. Such a statistic to take in mind about how kind of opportunities for employment are based off of racialized and non-racialized. So a recent study that we also found of various community stakeholders indicated that students and educators were extremely concerned about youth's post-secondary pathways. Programs such as SHISM, which is the Specialist High Skills Majors, and co-op programs cannot accommodate many youth because of the time commitment required. The mandatory school careers course have often been oriented to workplace safety and may not align with student readiness for employment. While the curriculum is revised for September 2024, it does not seem to address the greater challenges, including our lack of opportunities and thus experience, along with fewer available high school age jobs that are facing us as a post-pandemic cohort. So our call to actions involve making the school-based careers curriculum more responsive to the realities we face as Mississauga youth who have lived through the pandemic and are facing lower youth employment rates, and as diverse youth, potential social barriers to employment. So our very first call to action was reshaping and adapting the mandatory grade 10 careers curriculum to include at least 1 month of resume prep for real jobs right now, to use a youth-informed approach in the classroom that is more interactive and less theory assignment-based to be more relevant to our realities on the ground, to create opportunity boards in schools in partnership with community to provide a pathway to lower barrier opportunities, to support to map our networks and develop effective networking skills that will expand our job opportunities, and to understanding that the job landscape and how to leverage volunteer opportunities to create the bridge up to our goals. So that's our very first call to action. Our second one was to expand and promote municipal and provincial programs to address youth underemployment. For example, to set standards for youth inclusion in employment sectors wherever possible. Second, to promote and expand youth employment subsidy programs. And 3, to promote the programs and policies that support youth employment, such as subsidies, job training programs, to youth themselves and career courses instructors in school and in youth servicing agencies. So Sabrina and Monica are program coordinators of the YMCA of Greater Toronto. They create and facilitate workshops, curriculum, and events for several programs, including Youth Opioids Awareness Program, Youth Entrepreneurship Program, and the Launchpad for Women Entrepreneurs Program. They are dedicated to influencing youth positively and supporting them in achieving their aspirations. So I'll pass it to Sabrina and Monica now.
So as mentioned, we are the Ontario coordinators for the Youth for Entrepreneurship at the YMCA of Greater Toronto. And Sabina is here with me as well, if she wants to unmute.
Hello.
And yeah, we're going to talk to you guys about, resume building and interviews. So to get started, we're going to start with resumes. And just a general thing that we want to make sure, in case you're not aware of, if you are, that's great, just the components that are involved with your resume. So we all know for sure you need your personal information in there. Your personal information involves your full name, your address, and your contact information. That includes like your phone number or like a professional email. And it's important that it's a professional email, and you'll see why after. And then you also have your objective, which is your summary, about 1 to 2 sentences at the top. We're going to go into details of each of these, by the way. And you want to make sure you're expressing your intent for this. So for example, if you say, oh, seeking a part-time position in customer service with Hockey Lover Sports Store, I should work there because I love hockey. But we will go into details of how to make this a lot more detailed and specific to your job, because we don't want to keep it too general. And then we have your summary of skills. So what skills do you have? Are you good at math or writing? Or maybe what your attitude is like? Have you won any awards? Those are some of the things you can involve. And then again, we're going to go into details of how this can sound. So there's, you know, an example would be actively accepts new challenges. Maybe it's, you know, you're exceptional with math skills. You could be voted the most valuable player for the Northern Lights Junior Badminton team. That was in 2023. Just an example. Any work or volunteer experience, especially you guys, if you know you've never worked before, volunteer is really important. So you can combine these two categories together if you don't have a lot of experience, and you want to make sure to start your task descriptions with some powerful verbs. Some examples could be, you know, you were a volunteer face painter. You designed and painted children's faces at the CNE. You received transactions, calculated appropriate change, provided a positive introduction to a family fun family event, and you were responsible for the management of hundreds of dollars. So again, these just make sure when you are putting it, it is relevant to your job description. So we're going to go over that. So, education and certificates. Do you have any certifications? Is it like that you're a grade 9 student? Do you have a diploma? Do you have any food or handling certifications? First aid, right? CPR? Or are you taking any certification courses at the moment? And finally, you can have some activities if there's room on your resume, if it's relevant, such as sports or reading or clubs. It's really important that you put whatever it is that's relevant at the top and that stands out, because that's what they're going to be looking for. And they're going to filter through a bunch of resumes, as you can see, because they don't want to read everything in detail, and they're going to shortlist the ones that make it through for them to actually see. So now we're going to go into how to tailor that resume to your job description. So the very first thing to keep in mind is to go through that job description, and you want to pick out and pull out the important keywords and qualifications for this job. You want to pay attention to the requirements that are listed, and you want to prioritize them in your own resume. Now, if you find it hard to like go through everything and say like what is considered the keyword, what you can do is actually pull that job description, put it into like ChatGPT, and then you can ask for them to pull out keywords and use those words. Another thing is you want to look at other resumes of people with maybe similar job titles for that company that you're applying to. You can even look at LinkedIn, or maybe even a friend or someone you know works already at that company, and you ask for their resume and you can kind of compare and see. Another tip is you want to adjust your summary, because again, like I mentioned, it is the first thing an employer sees. So it's critical to highlight your most relevant skills and qualifications here. And you want to remember those keywords, and remember those keywords, you want to place them there. So for example, you don't want to put something as simple as, I want to obtain an entry-level position where my skills and knowledge can be utilized, right? I think they're just going to go right through those. Instead, tell them who you are and what you bring to the table, right? And the next thing is to highlight all the relevant experience. If it isn't relevant to the job you're applying for, remove it. So not everything and anything can be there just to fill the space, right? Then you also want to incorporate measurable accomplishments. That's really important. So what that means is you want to quantify what's on your resume, and that'll help it get past the ATS, which is the automatic, oh my gosh, the applicant tracking system, sorry. And that's how to impress recruiters. If you say, like, maybe, did you get an award for participation in clubs at school? If so, did you sell the most at a bake sale? Instead of just saying at a bake sale you sold the most, you want to say that you surpassed all the peers by 30% in sales, right? That's quantifying it. And you want to choose your words wisely. Whenever you're in doubt, just think like big numbers, like corporate, right? And the skills that are listed in the job description, it should match the skills you've listed in your resume. Just remember to be truthful. You don't want to say like, oh, I'm a guru at Excel, but then you're actually not, right? So don't include that if you aren't. And some simple resume do's and don'ts. So some of the things you can do for sure is using bullet points. So those bullet points are really simple. They're really essential because they like simplicity, right? They don't want to see so much cluster. They want it organized. You want to optimize it so you're strategic on where you're placing the order, right? You want to quantify your accomplishments again. So any career accomplishments, that's going to be considered for like the position itself. And really key is checking your grammar. So again, it's really important to have those peer editing, have 2 or 3 people honestly even look at it, because sometimes that one person may even miss it. So have many people checking. The don'ts, do not put any persons at all, like first person, second, or third person. So none of the I did this, I did that. Do not use any negative words. I think that's pretty much self-explanatory. Then you have unemployment, meaning don't give the impression that you weren't employed. Just, try and throw in something that seems like it could be as simple as like you babysat, right? But that's still some type of form of like employment. References, doing the available upon request. Do not put the available upon request. They will be asking, most of them will be asking for your references, so have them handy. And too much information, so including anything that's way too personal, that has nothing to do with it, it's going to be like an instant disqualification. So don't make it too personal.
All right, just to add to that, the professionalism, the professional email is very important. You don't want to apply with like sweet baby face 99 at hotmail.com. We want to like a first name dot last name at gmail.com kind of email. It seems silly to say, but we've seen some. They're fun. Okay, so this is a very, very simple resume, but you'll notice that there's like no actual work experience on this resume, which is why their education's at the top. But like, let's go look through it and see what they did pretty well here. So first, their professional summary and objective. They're pretty specific with what they want. They want a summer internship. They could be even more specific and actually state what company they want. This is a very general resume example, so that's okay. And then they go and they list their education and their qualification. What I really like what they've done here is they kind of put what courses work in relation to the job, right? They don't have any experience. They've never worked anywhere, but they've done coursework, and that is a type of experience that you can put under your education, right? So their relevant work experience, that's all the clubs that they've done at the school. That's fine. I like how they did it as major achievements instead of just clubs. They have quantifiable achievements as well. So you'll see numbers, you'll see percentages. The extracurriculars, they put in the like honorary stuff, key skills. Now, again, these are probably taken word for word out of the job description, which is okay. I like the format of this most of all. This is something that's ATS friendly. So very clear for a computer to read. It's the format very crisp and it's consistent. So you'll see that all the dates are on one side, all the titles are all bolded, the positions are italicized, it's consistent throughout, right? And this is something, yeah, very good use of white space as well. We don't want to crowd a resume. Just think of like when you open up a textbook at school and you see just blocks of text and your heart it drops and you're like, I don't want to read this. People are all the same, right? If your resume is just insanely wordy, no one's going to want to read it. So it's really important to use your bullet points and get rid of like the pronouns like Monica said, so that it's easier to digest. Again, the font is pretty easy to read. Most resumes use Times New Roman or Arial. You don't have to stick with those, but they have to be fonts that are easy to read. Don't do like Chiller or like any of the cool fonts that I don't remember the name of. The name at the top where it says high school student resume, that's supposed to be your name. It has to be the biggest. Okay, then subtitles can be like a 14, your context can be like a 12, but you have to stay consistent. Don't do very fancy designs, don't do very fancy colors. I know like we see things that are like on Canva, they're like, ooh, that's so pretty, but they're not ATS friendly, right? So it's not worth it to spend the extra time and just fill out the template, where something like this will work just as well. And like Monica said, all the most important stuff should be at the top. Yeah, so ATS is just essentially kind of like AI, where they scan the resumes and they see which ones fit best the job description. And there's kind of like a miscommunication in the world where like if you don't have the keywords, you're not going to get your resume shown to the recruiter. That's not necessarily true, but what they do is they prioritize those who have the most keywords and they kind of push them at the top of the list, right? And I don't know about like nowadays, the hiring process, it takes a lot longer, but there is also a lot of competition. So if you're not in the top 25%, chances are recruiters don't even have the time to look at your resume, right?
That's why we stress out the keywords. They're really important to have.
Keywords are key. Yes.
Yeah, so it's the applicant tracking system. Yes, that software that helps put them through. Thank you, Falak.
Thank you, Monica and Sabina. That was very easy to understand on my part. I feel like great refresher. Lisa, if you don't mind sharing the screen. Thank you so much. So hi, everyone. My name is Falak. I'm an agenda gap facilitator alongside our fantastic team here today. And I am excited to share this skill that I've learned here at business school at University of British Columbia. So I imagine many of you are familiar with the STAR method, which is often really recommended way to frame your responses during an interview. And STAR stands for situation, task, action, and results. So often on your resume, we want to adapt this idea of STAR, which is how we would really well explain a situation we were in on the job or in a club, and adapt it to our resume in the form of a RATS statement. So this essentially is just the backwards of STAR, as you can see by the spelling. And it's really about changing the responsibilities of your job or volunteer experience into your impact in that job or volunteer experience. So like Sabina and Monica really emphasized, we want to make sure these sentences, which is essentially what you're going to write under your job title or volunteer title, you want to make sure that they're past tense without any pronouns, person, language, or filler words. And essentially, we want to highlight what did we achieve, what action did we take to achieve it, and what was the task and situation at hand. So the next couple slides, I'm really going to try to break this down. So for example, a really common volunteer experience is volunteering at the food bank. So instead of writing volunteer, like food bank volunteer, Eden Food for Change, whatever, wherever that may be, and just writing volunteered for the food bank, or put cans on the racks, organize the back end. You want to really try to quantify what you've done. So often we aren't thinking about this when we're on the job. So this is something, if you're in jobs right now, if you're volunteering right now, to really try to think about the numbers that you're dealing with, because that's something you can really use on your resume and in the future. And I'll show later on an example of how one of my high school experiences I still use today on my resume just because of the numbers I've collected from there. So just to go over this image right here, you can see some really common experiences like volunteering for the food bank. This person changed it to initiated and launched campus-wide campaign for Vancouver Food Bank, collecting and delivering 2,000 pounds of non-perishable goods. So here we really understand the impact of what this person did beyond just volunteering for the food bank. As well, at the bottom here is a bunch of really great words you can use. So for example, exceeded, increased, surpassed, which is another fancy word for increased, optimize, established. These are all fantastic words, and they can also be much simpler, like mentioned on the past page as well. And we'll see moving forward some other examples if you don't mind the next slide. Okay, so to really break this down, a great way to think about this when you're forming your sentences, which is really what the recruiter will see. If they see like a really cool job title that goes exactly with the job that is at hand, they may take a second to look at what's under it. So that first sentence should really be using this framework in all the sentences ideally. So for example, to break up my experience at United Way, for example, my result would be that I raised over $700 for United Way. And again, there's no I included in the sentence, but possibly me and my team did that in reality. How did I do that? Well, by collaborating with 5 school clubs. That would be how. And then tasks and situations is any more specific details to provide the recruiter an idea of like what was the whole situation. So to read this fully, it would be raised over $700 for United Way by collaborating with school clubs to organize a 2-day sales campaign. That tells me exactly what you did and what you achieved. And this rest 3 examples, I just thought I would put it out there in case you guys wanted more to look at. So another one I can call out here is increase students' grades from B averages to A averages in 6 months. So if you're a tutor, this is a fantastic way to phrase your involvements. So by preparing weekly lessons and tailoring to individual strengths and weaknesses. And essentially, this really, in reality, this is about what you actually did is listen to your client, who would be the person that you're tutoring, and prepare lessons for them. And keep in mind, okay, what were their grades when you started working with them, and what are their grades now? And you do have a hand in that as their tutor, possibly, right? That's something you would be able to identify depending on your relationship and how the tutoring is going. So next slide, please, Lisa. Just to make this a bit more personal, I thought I would throw in one of my personal experiences. So in grade 12, I was part of Mississauga Youth Action Committee, which is a really great opportunity for all of you if you're interested in getting involved in Mississauga. And in that, my responsibilities were, so essentially, these are the things that I was told I had to do when I applied for this volunteer position. So it was to lead meetings, write meeting agendas, plan events, hire ambassadors, and talk with community partners. So once upon a time, I did put that simply on my resume, probably on my first copy of my resume, thinking, okay, this is what a recruiter needs to know. This is what I'm doing. And then as I finished my role and came out of high school and into university, I adapted what my responsibilities were to what I actually did on the job. So for example, in a quantitative sentence, I wanted to talk about how when I first started, engagement was pretty low. And at the end of my term with my team, it was really high. So to do that, I wrote that I increased engagement by 40% by attracting 600 participants to 15 plus blank, blank, blank events. So there in the green, you can see the result. So I increased engagement, and my action was by attracting participants to interesting events. And that's a quantitative sentence. Another sentence I use that's qualitative is that I fostered community, so that's something that's qualitative, by introducing 4 impactful collaborations, including details, so workshops with UFT, youth town halls, and the mayor. So there again, I'm using a result, I fostered community. And how did I do that? By introducing 4 impactful collaborations. this is a skill that takes a lot of time to develop. This maybe is my 5th time revising this paragraph, and now this is what I use as one of my volunteer experiences on my resume. So just trust the process, and hopefully we can get a 1/4 of the way there today. But I hope that this is an important takeaway for all of you, and I'll turn it back to Monica and Sabina for their final thoughts.
So interview prep, we're going to make this really fun and interactive and quick. I don't know if you guys are able to unmute. If not, no problem. You can say it out loud in your head or drop it in the chat. It's pretty much like the do's and don'ts when it comes to your preparation before you actually are sitting in the chair and doing the interview. So I'm going to read the statements, and then you tell me if it's a you do this or you don't do this. And then we have 5 seconds before you see the result. Okay. All right. First one, research the company and the position you're applying for. Thumbs up or thumbs down? Thumbs up. Okay, it's faster than I thought. I gotta read faster. Next one, memorize your answers. Do you have to memorize your answers? No, you do not have to memorize your answers. 3, bring a personal support person, like mom or dad or... No, exactly. All right. I don't know. Oh, there it is. Lag. There we go. Research common interview questions and practice your answers. Thumbs up. It's a do. Arrive 10 minutes early. Yes, absolutely. Not just on time, come earlier. Looks better. Wear too much perfume or smell of smoke. Definite no-no. And then be nervous. No, but you know, you're gonna obviously be nervous, but like try not to be nervous, right? Show that confidence. And dress appropriately for the job. You're gonna be neatly groomed, dressed relatively conservatively, and have a breath mint handy. Oh, I try to get it through before the thumbs up.
You did an
But
amazing
yes,
job.
it is.
Way better than I would. There was another question put in the chat.
Oh, sorry, yes.
I'll read it out. It says,
Yeah,
are
please.
businesses looking for someone that can do the job, or are they looking for more? That's a great question. And the answer is kind of. Obviously, they want someone to do the job, but what I think is more important than finding someone for the role is finding someone for the culture, right? Like there could be 10 people who have the same skills, but only one of those people that will match your personality. So when you're interviewing, always try to kind of mesh with the interviewer, right? Try to find common ground. Like I'll give you an example. When I came back to Canada, and remember I had no Canadian work experience, I only worked at like a language center in the Middle East. So I was doing the interview with Good Life Fitness, and the person who was interviewing me, he had like a little baby Yoda on his shelf. I'm like, are you a Star Wars fan? He's like, yeah, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I'm like, okay, do you like the prequels, the original trilogy? He's like, original all the way. I'm like, that's what I think. We talked for 20 minutes about Star Wars. Had nothing to do with the interview, but I got the job because we had such a good connection, right? Because people want to work with people that they like. And that's kind of ties into not being nervous, because it's not just them finding someone for the position, it's them finding someone for their culture. And if they make a mistake and they hire the wrong person, then it's a lot easier to hire than it is to fire. That's what I know. And so they don't want to make that mistake. So it's just as nerve-wracking for them as it is for you doing the interview, right? You shouldn't think of it like, oh, I have to get this job. You should think of it like, what do I have to offer, right? And what do they have to offer me? All right, so same thing. Oh my gosh, be polite and cordial to everyone.
I'm so sorry. It clicked already. I'm so sorry. These are your do's and don'ts for when you're actually in the interview.
Doing the interview. Yeah, so same thing is yes, you do it, or no, you don't. And this one was yes. Kind of ties into what I was saying before, but don't just do this with the interviewer, do it with the receptionist that you meet. Do it with the people in the elevator. Like, you don't know who you don't know, right? There was one time me and Monica were in the elevator at our workplace, and we live, not live, sometimes it feels like we live, but we work in this, in the post media building. So every floor is a different business, right? And we were just like talking, and then someone comes in with like a bunch of sodas or whatever. And I just started talking with them and like being nice and friendly. And that ended up being a great business connect for our entrepreneurship program. So you never know who you don't know. Be afraid to ask them to repeat the questions. We should not be afraid to ask any questions. Question them as much as they question you. That's my oh sorry. Repeat the interviewer's name to help you remember it. That was a
Sorry, we gotta keep going.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's a great technique to remember. Be ambivalent. Ambivalence, like, I don't really care. Yeah, that's a great thing to say. No, we want to show that we care about this position and that we really want to be here.
Okay, now we're
Now I'm
ready.
ready.
Okay.
Slouch in the chair and fidget while you're talking. No, I have the worst posture you can imagine, but during interviews, I'm like a ballerina. I'm like straight back the entire time. And then after you can slouch, it's fine. Have enthusiasm about the job in the company. Yes. Oh yeah.
Do your research about the company. They do ask that. It's like, what do you know about this company? I've been asked that before for my very first job. And I used to work at like Party Packages, which is Party City. And they're like, oh, what do you know about us? And it's good to know that information.
That being said, if you don't know, just be honest. Just be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I just moved. I haven't had any time to, research about the company. This is what I know off the top of my head, but I'd really love it if you would just share more information with me about it, right? Just be honest about it. Don't try to fluff your way through it. Sell yourself short. No, this is your time to shine. Think of it as like your 15 seconds of fame. You're gonna toot all about yourself. I don't know if that was the right turn of phrase, but you're gonna just really sell yourself and like you're the best person at this job. You have 15-20 minutes to say it and then make use of that time.
We're almost done. I'm so sorry. We gotta keep going. All right.
Give detailed answers with examples to their questions. Yes,
Absolutely.
for sure. This was all what Phallic was talking about with the rats and the stars.
This next part will be really quick. It's just one of the top 5 like common questions you may get, and you're going to be given 2 options, and from those 2 options you have to choose which one would be the best of the 2. Okay, so if anything, you can do like 1 is the top one, 2 is the second one, and I'll try and read these as quickly as possible. So why would you like to work here? Is the best answer. I love DSW, so Designer Shoe Warehouse, and what they stand for. I like that you can donate pairs of shoes to receive points for purchase, and that the pair of shoes gets given to those in need. That really resonates with my desire to help the community. Or number 2, my friends work here, and I think it'd be fun to work with them. Are we dropping a number 1? Or are we dropping a number 2? 1, definitely. I think we're all in agreement. That's how you should be answering if you do get a question like this. Second question you may get is, why should we choose you? And should your answer be, because I'm the absolute best when it comes to selling, I can convince anyone of anything, or because I'm a motivated person and I'm very goal-oriented. Sorry, that was misspelled there. For example, our school bake sale, I sold 30% more goods than any other seller. Yes, number 2, good job. I don't even have to read the rest, do I? Awesome, good job, guys. You're like, I shall go. All right, next. Tell me about yourself. This one, you'd be surprised. They actually do ask this quite a bit. Sometimes they may even change it to the form of if you could describe yourself in 1 word. Sometimes that happens too. So, well, I'm an honor student at Maple High School. I also play varsity volleyball. I always push myself to improve and progress. I love seeing my accomplishments on paper, whether it's a higher math mark or a higher vertical on my jump. Or I love playing video games in my free time and just hanging out with my friends. And then etc. All the personal stuff. Yeah, 1, absolutely.
Also for the second one, you'll notice they kind of bring in religion and politics to it, which is the 2 things you don't want to mention in an interview. You never know what someone's bias is, so just steer clear of that conversation.
What are your strengths? Would it be, I don't really have anything that I excel in. I'm not the smartest or the fastest kid in my grade. I'm great at playing basketball, but I think that would help me sell shoes at DSW. Or 2, strength is love of learning. And that's important to do as well. You're always willing to learn and you're coachable or teachable. And that's something really important for them. So 2 for sure. Absolutely. All right. And what are your weaknesses? So this is really tricky because a lot of you may think like, what your actual weakness is, but it's better strategy to name a weakness that's actually a strength that can somehow look like a weakness. So for example, one weakness I have is I have a hard time saying no. I take on additional responsibilities that cause me to work beyond my capacity. However, I've taken steps to ensure I don't overdo it by making sure I have an up-to-date schedule. That is technically like a strength of yours where you're able to take on a lot of tasks, right? So they want to see that you're able to do that, but it's considered like a weakness because you don't say no. But try to make yourself sound good still with the weakness. You don't want to actually make it sound like an actual weakness, if that makes sense. All right. Yes. So it was number 1. Instead of saying I hate waking up in the morning, don't tell them that. We all don't like waking up in the morning. Well, I think most. And then the very last one that you actually may get quite often is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? So would it be definitely not working here unless it's in your job? I've got my eye on the manager prize. No, it would be, I definitely want to pursue a higher education where I complete high school. However, the cost of attending post-secondary is quite high, and I would like to remain debt-free. And see, so honest, right? Very interested in maintaining employment here while I study. Absolutely. You guys are pros. Definitely number 1.
I have just one question I think that would be really important to know about is what makes a candidate stand out during an interview? If you could say just one thing in specific.
I would say enthusiasm, charisma, just being happy to be there is such a big difference. They want to know that you care about the role and the company, not just about getting money. I think that's the one thing that people are afraid of. Speaking to people who hire, that's the one thing they're afraid of.
And
Yeah.
we have a question in the chat
I see that.
about just if you're interviewing for a retail job, what's the best thing to wear? And off the top of my head, I would say it's less important what you wear, and more important that it's in very good condition, really clean, ironed, all of those things. Maybe if you have to be on your feet in retail, wearing footwear that shows that you understand that being on your feet requires like comfortable shoes, things like that. Yeah.
I would also think of like retail is such a vast thing. Yeah, wearing the brand clothes is great.
Yeah.
Just looking at what they sell in the store. So if it's like a high-end retail place, you have to pay attention to what you wear when you show up to the interview. Whereas if it's like, I don't know, like the Nike store, feel free to wear like a Nike runners or whatever, right?
Your brand, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I will say, I know it's not acceptable that they do this, but depending on where you are working in retail, image is really important. So as mentioned, like for example, that Sabina was saying, if you are going for more like a high-end type of retail store, don't be showing up in like sweatpants and stuff like that, right? I think that's a given. Like I worked at a shoe store, and even I was in like a blazer, leggings, had the high boots and everything, and it still wasn't like their look, I guess, that they wanted. So I think just making sure you do your research and seeing what kind of brand imaging that they want.
Yeah, study the other employees.
Yeah.
We'll pass it on now to Omar Good Game, who is a youth engagement coordinator from Every Mind, and is going to talk us through how to deal with rejection and in general, how to be promotional towards your mental health while you're doing a job search, because it's not an easy thing to do, and especially when you're starting off. So thanks, Omar, for joining us. Off to you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to have the conversation. I'm excited to also hear from some of the experiences of folks who are here on screen. I think it's one thing for me to come in and share insight, but I think we all have insights that we can share as well too, that we can have a collective learning when it comes to, this notion of dealing with when you're applying for an interview or applying for a job and things don't necessarily go the way that we hope or intended to, and what that can do to our mental health and what that can do to our feelings towards ourselves. But one of my first questions I have for everyone, and if you don't mind, is to, I guess, by show of hands, how many of you have applied to a job and heard absolutely nothing? I'm seeing hands all across the board. I'm seeing hands in the room there, applying to a job and hearing nothing. How about applying for a job, feeling like everything went great, you have a great resume, you interviewed, it was fantastic, it felt like, oh my goodness, there's a strong connection here, and then you did not get the job? Me too. I could put my hands up for both of those questions. All right. And if anyone wants to share, whether drop in the chat or unmute, or anybody who's in person, just to share what that feeling is like or was like for you. All right, so we have in the chat, it felt like a stab in the heart, and I felt really disappointed to myself. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. That takes bravery for you to come up and share that. And I want to also echo that that feeling is something that I myself am familiar with. And any person here who's on screen or in person, you're not alone in that same feeling. Feeling disheartened, feeling disappointed. So I first really wanted to start off with just having that brief conversation and that question, because when I really wanted to ground the reality in the fact that you're not alone in these types of experience. These are not unique experiences. These are not unilateral experiences, meaning it just happens to you only and it's personal. It's actually a very unfortunate, common, and universal experience that many individuals experience, regardless of age, level of experience, and or level of education. I see Lisa, Falik, and myself, I put my hands up. I'm post-secondary educated, master's level, and you can still experience some of those same experiences that that was just shared. And so whether you're 16, 15, 18 plus, these are all common experiences, and so you're not alone. And so I really want to start off by leveling that realistic fact that you're not alone in that experience, and the importance that, you know, there's things to then now put in place to remind us to keep pushing forward and keeping a positive mindset when it comes to applying for jobs and having to potentially deal with rejection. So I do want to circle a little bit back, and I want to introduce myself a little more formally, the role that I have and where I do work. So my name is Omar Goodgame. I work at Every Mind Mental Health Services. Every Mind Mental Health Services is the lead agency for child and youth mental health services for the Peel region. We offer free child and youth mental health services to individuals in Brampton, Mississauga, and Caledon. We offer services in counseling services specifically, and other mental health services 0 to 25. We support families and caregivers with tips and strategies on how to support their children who may be experiencing mental health challenges. We also offer counseling and other services to young people up to ages of 18. So that's the organization that I do work for. But I do want to share that my role, while I work for a mental health organization, my role is not a clinical role at Every Mind. My role is the youth engagement coordinator. And essentially what my role is community engagement, and community engagement specifically with young people. And so I typically engage young people between the ages of 14 to 25. And we really call young people 14 and 25 because that young adult age, which is that 18 to 25 window, that's the transitional age for many young people as they transition into adulthood. And there's a lot of times where that age population does not get, you know, the appropriate supports that they need. And so part of my role is to support that age gap, because for our services, many of our mental health services do stop at 18. And so how do we have a role that supports that transition for young people once they reach 18 plus? And so part of my role is to engage with members in the community with young people, and they volunteer and they work with me in different capacities to support improving our community mental health service system that we have here in Peel. And so my role, I work with young people such as yourselves between that age bracket, 14-25. We work on different projects surrounding engaging young people to improve what mental health services can look like in the region of Peel. And we do have some really neat opportunities coming up in the next 6 months, actually. When it comes to engaging young people, we have a youth peer support training that's going to be happening in the fall. We have a couple of research projects with York University, and we have another project that's happening within our organization around getting young people to be engaged in mental health leadership and also understanding resilience. But before I continue, I want to first pause and open the floor just for any immediate question that anybody has that they want to ask me around this topic before I share a little bit more information.
I have a question, Omar, that has come up a bunch in our groups sessions like prior, which is how do you stay motivated during the job search when you're either not hearing back or when you just simply like don't think that you are qualified enough just because you're young and you haven't had like necessarily official professional experiences? How do you stay motivated?
It's a great question. And I really want to touch on this aspect of motivation. So one, really circling back to the why you're applying for those jobs and why you're applying to maybe even that job. And really taking time to have reflection in your job searching process. It can feel super demotivating if you're just applying to any and every job and hearing absolutely nothing. You're not curating your resume, you're not curating your cover letter, you're not curating your actual application to maybe fit what that job application may be looking for. And so that format and that strategy can potentially lead to probably a lot of feeling down and feeling demotivated. And so really, again, having that moment of reflection of, okay, why do I want this job? Why am I applying for this job? And what comes out of this job application for me? And I think those are just some of the moments of reflection. And I do want to highlight just, a mindset to consider when in the job application process, which is the mindset that it's not about you in the job application process, right? It's not personal to you as a job applicant. And what that means, and what I mean by that is taking away the personal aspect of it, I think opens one up to feeling more comfortable about the potential of rejection because it's not seen as a personal dig or a personal attack to one's own core, who they are as a person and what they have to bring. And also, and I want to say, I want to acknowledge that it's okay to feel frustrated on the process. It is 100% normal. It is okay to feel frustrated, disappointed, all those things that we've highlighted so far. It means that you're human and that you have the emotions. And so that's a good thing. And how do you channel that energy and stay motivated to be able to move forward? And one of the things I didn't mention this yet, which is to have a good support system and network around you that you can fall on. I know it's probably discussed around the importance of networking and building a strong network of trust, network of support that you can tap into their strength to give you strength when you're feeling low. So that's one of the ways to sort of help with alleviating the feelings of demotivation. I see a comment around relationships pave the way. Relationships are super important. And what I will say to add to the aspect of relationships, relationships where it doesn't feel like you only want something from the other person, where it doesn't feel like it's reciprocal. Reciprocal meaning that there's a mutual benefit. I think that's really important, is to build rapport and build those relationships. And I will say, putting yourself out there, finding opportunities to volunteer and to be engaged is also really helpful. And one of the things that I'm not sure maybe was touched on was the aspect of having a mentor and supportive mentorship of a trusted adult in your life. It could be a family member, another professional who can provide some sort of insight and or guidance on how to navigate some of those spaces and some of these challenges that you are facing. Super important.
Last question then before we wrap up for today is, what's your best advice on managing nerves and anxiety prior to an interview?
First thought that came to my mind, and I believe strongly that approach, is to practice. I think practice will help to alleviate some nerves. Practice with maybe someone that you know, practice with a trusted person that you have in your family network. Super important just to have that experiential learning and that feeling. It's not going to be the same as in an interview, absolutely not. But what you're doing is you're actually preparing and wiring your brain on how to be ready for potential questions. You're preparing your brain as to how to adjust and, be ready as best as you can for that opportunity, for that interview. And it can also help to keep one person grounded. And again, knowing the why you're applying for that job, knowing the why that employer's values and missions align to you, and not just, well, you pay me, so I'm aligned because you pay me. That's not gonna, be as successful as one may think. Really staying grounded in your why. And when it comes to, I guess, really having significant anxiety or, really tough thoughts around that, I would say also to seek any mental health supports that you may need. At every month, we offer the Tangerine Walk-in services, which is a walk-in counseling service. Any person 0 to 17, caregiver, adult, or young person that can go and access, and you can have a conversation with a counselor about, some of the nerves that you may have applying for jobs. And I really want to also highlight that the idea that seeking counseling looks only one way. It's not true. You can go to counseling and you can share why you're scared of something, just to be able to talk it out, just to have somebody else there to listen to you. It doesn't have to be because you have this major problem or you have a diagnosis or you're, whatever the case may be. It really destigmatizing the idea of seeking help and seeking support. And even if that's help and support looks like getting it from a counselor in a walking service, or going to a YMCA and speaking to an employment counselor and just talking through the fears there and discussing some of the strategies and what you can do. Practicing different things for everyone. It could be giving or saying affirmations to yourself. It could be saying affirmations before your interview, in the morning, whatever that may be. Having an encouraging word, keeping a note to yourself that maybe you wrote to keep you motivated, keep you grounded, that you maybe have in your phone or have on a piece of paper, as you prepare for going on to an interview and managing one's own anxiety. So there's so many different ways to get to the same result, which is to ultimately get you a job, to get you the experience. There's no one shoe fits all model. These are all suggestions of ways in how you can support oneself to, putting yourself in the best and giving yourself the best possible opportunity to reach the goal that you want to get. So I really wish you all the best on this journey, and I really want to reiterate again that you're not alone in the process. It's okay. Take the moment to reflect and learn. Maybe there was something that you could do better on your resume, make changes, but believe in the process and really curate and don't be shy to ask for help. I think I heard one of the presenters said, like, asking for help. There's a lot of people who will help more than we think sometimes. It's really just finding the courage to ask for help, wherever that help is in this process. There's a lot of people who want to help young people do their best, who want to help young people be their best. And so really want to encourage folks to ask for help, whether it's a mental health professional, an employment counselor, a friend, a trusted adult, a trusted, person, whomever that may be for you, and not to be shy to ask for help.